If you've spent any amount of time researching Lake Greenwood, or maybe you've already been out here to visit, there's a good chance that you've come across some version of this question, and that is what's going on with the lake levels. Maybe you saw a house that was listed with a dock and you drove out there and found out that the water levels were way lower than what they were in the pictures. Or maybe you've had somebody mention full pool, or they used the term year-round water and you had no idea what that meant. Or maybe more importantly, you're just trying to figure out what you're actually buying before you get into a lakefront property. Today, I'm going to explain all of this to you guys in plain language. We're going to cover how the lake levels work, who actually controls them, the specific numbers that you're going to need to know, what you actually own as a property owner on this lake, and what the term year-round water actually means. Because that comes up a lot in lakefront listings, and it's important for you guys to know what that actually means. My name is Timmons, and I am your local real estate expert on all things Greenwood, South Carolina, Lake Greenwood, and the Piedmont region. I have lived here my entire life, and I get to service all of Lake Greenwood, Greenwood County, and the smaller surrounding areas. If you were thinking about relocating here, or maybe you have additional questions, I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. Just make sure that you reach out, give me a phone call or a text, or shoot me an email at any of the information below, and I would be glad to help. And this is one of those topics that I think every buyer needs to know and understand before they sign anything or especially purchase any waterfront property. And with that, let's get into it. So first, we're going to get into the big question: who owns Lake Greenwood and who actually controls it? The first thing that you guys are going to want to understand is that Greenwood is not a natural lake. As I've mentioned in previous videos, it was constructed in 1940 by the construction of the Buzzards Dam. And because it was built in a man-made reservoir, the water levels here are actively managed. It doesn't just go up and down and do whatever it wants. Lake Greenwood is owned and managed by Greenwood County. That is a very important distinction because this is not a federally managed reservoir. It is a county-owned lake, and Greenwood County controls the dam operations and sets the seasonal water level targets. And this is something that surprises a lot of buyers when they first hear it. But as a lakefront property owner on Lake Greenwood, you own your land down to the 440-foot elevation line. And that is it. Everything below 440 foot, the lake bed, the shoreline below that area, all of that belongs to Greenwood County. So when the water level drops during the winter drawdown, that strip of land that gets exposed between where the water actually is and your property line, that is all Greenwood County land and is not yours. You can't build on it, you can't claim it, and you should factor that into how you think about your waterfront. This isn't typically one of those things that oftentimes get explained clearly during the buying process. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys hear it clearly. Your property ends at the 440. And understanding that up front will save you guys a lot of confusion later on. Okay, so number 2, there are 3 pool levels that you guys need to understand. And once you know these, everything else starts to make a lot more sense. The first number is the 440. That is what I was just previously talking about. When we use the term 440, we're talking about feet above sea level. This is what here in Greenwood we would call full pool. This is the absolute top of the target range. And again, just like I mentioned previously, but that 440 line marks the end of your property line. It is the specific boundary as a lakefront owner. So when the lake is sitting at 440, it is as full as it can possibly get. The second number is 439. This is what we would call the summer target pool. This is ideal operating level during the summer and peak lake season. This is supposed to be in place from April 15th to November the 1st. So the overall goal during this time period is have the lake sitting right at 439. So if you're coming here during the summers to come look at property, or maybe to just enjoy the lake, the 439 is what you are going to be looking at. This is going to be 1 foot below full pool, which in a practical term means that you're not going to see much of a difference. The lake looks full, all of your docks are in the water, and everything is working the way which you would expect it. All right, and the third number is going to be 434.5. This is what we would call the winter pool. This is the lowest that the lake is brought down to during drawdown season. And this is all done intentionally. The lake hits that 434.5 mark somewhere in January. The target is by January the 15th. And the lake will be at that level through February 1st, which is effectively the bottom of the cycle. After that, the lake starts to rise back up all the way through early spring and into summer before we get back to that 439. Ideally, we want to be at that 439 mark by April 15th. That's the target. So to put all of that together, the lake drops 4.5 foot from summer pool to winter pool. That is the full range of what you're going to be dealing with here. And again, as I mentioned earlier, but that drawdown is very intentional. It creates storage capacity for winter and spring rainfall, and it gives homeowners a period of time to do dock work or any other repairs on any structure that would otherwise be underwater. And a lot of people take advantage of this window that you have during the year. All right, number 3, I want to talk about what year-round water actually means. This is a term that I want to spend some real time on because it shows up in lake listings every day. And I don't personally think that it gets explained the way that it needs to be. So when you see a listing that says that the property has year-round water, what that should mean is that even at your lowest point on the lake, during your winter drawdown, when the lake is at 434.5, in mid-January to early February, you will still be able to pull your boat up and tie off at that dock. This means that the water at your dock would never drop low enough to where your boat would be sitting on the dry ground, or that you couldn't navigate in and out of it. Now, on the other hand, whether that matters to you is entirely based upon how you plan on using the lake. If you don't plan on using your boat in the winter, then it's honestly probably not that big of a deal. A lot of people who buy here on Lake Greenwood, especially your second home buyers or folks that are coming in from out of state, they aren't out in the water in January anyway. They're typically here for the summer. So in that case, year-round water is nice to have, but it's not a deal breaker if the property doesn't have it. But if you are somebody who plans on using the lake year-round, or at least maybe you want the option to do that. Maybe you're a fisherman, or maybe you're going to be retiring here full time and you want that flexibility regardless of the season, then year-round water absolutely needs to be on your checklist. It's one of the first things that I ask buyers when we start talking about their must-have list, because it can vastly narrow or widen the pool of properties that make sense for them. The properties that do typically have this year-round water, they're going to be in a little bit deeper water. This is going to be the big water parts of the lake rather than the shallow areas the further you get back into the cove. And that actually makes a lot of sense and is not a coincidence when your lake drops 4.5 feet. That drop is going to hit vastly different in the back of the cove as it will when you're out on the point. So when you are evaluating a property, this is one of those things that you want to make sure that you have a full grasp on, and you want to make sure that you have the real answer, not just a marketing phrase and a listing description. Okay, for this next section, I want to talk about what this actually means for docks and for property access. This is a couple of other practical things that you're going to want to know when you are looking at property here on Lake Greenwood. First, your dock type matters. Most docks here on Lake Greenwood are one of two types, a fixed dock or a floating dock. A floating dock rises and falls with the water levels, which handles the seasonal fluctuation naturally. Now, a fixed dock is going to be set to a specific height, which is fine at summer pool, but it is something to think about when your lake levels are sitting 4.5 foot lower than typical during February. All right, secondly, you remember that strip of land that I mentioned? The ground between your property line at the 440 and where the water actually is? That is county land. Without a doubt, you're going to see it exposed every winter. You can walk on it, but you can't build on it or treat it as your own. Just something to be aware of so that it doesn't catch you off guard the first time that you see it. And third, if you are shopping for a lakefront property here during the winter months, I would also try to come and visit during the summer as well, or at bare minimum, maybe get a photo. The lake at its lowest point at 434.5 looks vastly different than it does during the summer months. Both are going to be accurate representations of what you guys are buying. I just think that it's important that you see both. Okay, and this last section is going to be questions that you need to ask before buying your lakefront property. 1. Does the property have year-round water? Meaning that when the lake is at its lowest point at 434.5, can I drive my boat up to my dock and can I tie off? Number 2, what is the water depth at the end of my dock during the summer months when the lake is at full pool? And on the flip side, what does the depth look like during the winter months when it's at 434.5? Number 3, is this a floating dock or is it a fixed dock? And if it is fixed, what is the clearance when the lake drops? And lastly, number 4 is going to be, are all of the current structures that are there, your dock, your seawall, etc., are they currently in good standing with Greenwood County? And if they're not there, is your lot eligible to have these things added? These aren't red flags, they're just the right questions. So there it is. That's how the Lake Greenwood levels actually work here. Greenwood County owns and manages this lake. Your property ends at the 440 foot line. Summer pool is $439, running from April 15th to November the 1st. Winter pool bottoms out at $434.5. This happens somewhere between January the 15th and February 1st. And then it starts climbing back up. Year-round water means that you can access your dock via boat when the lake is at its lowest point. And again, whether that matters to you depends entirely on how you plan to use the lake. This is the kind of knowledge that you're going to want to know and the things that you're going to want to understand before you come here to make a 6 or 7 figure purchase on your lake property. And it's exactly the type of thing that I'm here to help you work through. So if you're thinking about moving to Lake Greenwood, whether it's a second home or a retirement home or a primary residence, please feel free to reach out. You can give me a call or text at this number below and you will reach me directly. I would love to help you guys find the right fit for you here on Lake Greenwood. Also, make sure that you guys check out some of our other videos about some of my favorite neighborhoods here on the lake, or why this area is set up for some serious growth over the next decade. And lastly, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.